SCUM Manifesto by Valerie Solanas. I think my stomach just growled. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. My clock even stopped working. Suppression of individuality, animalism, domesticity and motherhood, and functionalism. The male is just a bundle of conditioned reflexes, incapable of a mentally free response. He is tied to his early conditioning, determined completely by his past experiences. His earliest experiences are with his mother, and he is throughout his life tied to her. It never becomes completely clear to the male that he is not part of his mother, that he is he and she is she. His greatest need is to be guided, sheltered, protected, and admired by Mama. Men expect women to adore what men shrink from in horror, themselves, and being completely physical, he yearns to spend his time, that's not spent out in the world, grimly defending against his passivity, wallowing in basic animal activities, eating, sleeping, shitting, relaxing, and being soothed by Mama. Passive, rattle-headed, daddy's girl, ever eager for approval, for a pat on the head, for the respect of any passing piece of garbage, is easily reduced to Mama. Mindless ministrator to physical needs, soother of the weary apey brow, booster of the puny ego, appreciator of the contemptible, a hot water bottle with tits. The reduction to animals of the women of the most backward segment of society, the privileged, educated middle class, the backwash of humanity, where daddy reigns supreme, has been so thorough that they try to groove on labor pains and lie around in the most advanced nation in the world in the middle of the 20th century with babies chomping away on their tits. Wow. We are in the 21st century and we are still doing that. It's not for the kids' sake, though, that the experts tell women that mamas should stay at home and grovel in animalism, but for daddies. The tits for daddy to hang on to, the labor pains for daddy to vicariously groove on, and perhaps punish the woman, depending on your theology. Half dead, he needs awfully strong stimuli to make him respond. Reducing the female to an animal, to mama, to a male, is necessary for psychological as well as practical reasons. The male is a mere member of the species, interchangeable with every other male. He has no deep-seated individuality, which stems from what intrigues you, what outside yourself absorbs you, what you're in relation to. Completely self-absorbed, capable of being in relation only to their bodies and physical sensations, males differ from each other only to the degree and in the ways they attempt to defend themselves against their passivity and against their desire to be female. The female's individuality, which he is acutely aware of, but which he doesn't comprehend and isn't capable of relating to or grasping emotionally, frightens and upsets him and fills him with envy. So he denies it in her and proceeds to define everyone in terms of his or her function or use, assigning to himself, of course, the most important functions: doctor, president, scientist, thereby providing himself with an identity, if not individuality, and tries to convince himself and women, he succeeded best at convincing women, oyster, that the female function is to bear and raise children and to relax, comfort, and boost the ego of the male. Ooh, what's that chick with the hat? That her function is such as to make her interchangeable with every other female. In actual fact, the female function is to relate, groove, love, and be herself, irreplaceable by anyone else. The male function is to produce sperm. We now have sperm banks. In actual fact, the female function is to explore, discover, invent, solve problems, crack jokes, make music, all with love. In other words, create a magic world. prevention of privacy. Although the male, being ashamed of what he is and of almost everything he does, insists on privacy and secrecy in all aspects of his life, he has no real regard for privacy. Being empty, not being a complete separate being, having no self to groove on, and needing to be constantly in female company, he sees nothing at all wrong in intruding himself on any woman's thoughts, even a total stranger's, anywhere at any time, but rather feels indignant and insulted when put down for doing so, as well as confused. He can't, for the life of him, understand why anyone would prefer so much as 1 minute of solitude to the company of any creep around. Wanting to become a woman, he strives to be constantly around females, which is the closest he can get to becoming one. So he created a society based on the family, a male-female couple and their kids, the excuse for the family's existence, who live virtually on top of one another, unscrupulously violating the female's rights, privacy, and sanity. Oh my goodness. Okay. Hey. Whew, Valerie. Isolation, suburbs, and prevention of community. Our society is not a community, but merely a collection of isolated family units. Desperately insecure, fearing his woman will leave him if she is exposed to other men or to anything remotely resembling life, the male seeks to isolate her from other men and from what little civilization there is. So he moves her out to the suburbs, a collection of self-absorbed couples and their kids. Isolation enables him to try to maintain his pretense of being an individual by becoming a rugged individualist, a loner, equating non-cooperation and solitariness with individuality. Whose community does that look like? There is yet another reason for the male to isolate himself. Every man is an island, trapped inside himself, emotionally isolated, unable to relate. The male has a horror of civilization, people, cities, situations requiring an ability to understand and relate to people. I just have to say, it is something that the men who are able to do that are more often than not characterized as fruitcakes. No matter which way they swing, they're more than often characterized as fruitcakes. If they have that capacity, if they have that capability by other men, they are deemed as less than men. So, like a scared rabbit, he scurries off, dragging daddy's little hole along with him to the wilderness, the suburbs, or in the case of the hippie, he's way out, man. All the way out to the cow pasture where he can and breed undisturbed and mess around with his beads and flute. Listen here. Okay. Okay, that's not that bad, but okay, I feel like I had so much trouble editing because of the beeps and the non-beeps. So I will try to edit on the fly. Okay. The hippie, whose desire to be a man, a rugged individualist, isn't quite as strong as the average man's, and who, in addition, is excited by the thought of having lots of women accessible to him, rebels against the harshness of a breadwinner's life and the monotony of one woman. Can we, what is it? Find and replace? Can we find and replace hippie for ninjas? Okay, so the hippie, whose desire to be a man, a rugged individualist, isn't quite as strong as the average man's, and who in addition is excited by the thought of having lots of women accessible to him, rebels against the harshness of a breadwinner's, read traditional man, of a breadwinner's life and the monotony of one woman. In the name of sharing and cooperation, he forms the commune or tribe, which for all its togetherness and partly because of it, the commune being an extended family is an extended violation of the female's rights, privacy, and sanity, is no more a community than normal society. Ooh, nature boy, nature boy, nature boy. A true community consists of individuals, not mere species members, not couples, respecting each other's individuality and privacy, at the same time interacting with each other mentally and emotionally, free spirits in free relation to each other, and cooperating with each other to achieve common ends. Traditionalists say the basic unit of society is the family. Hippies say the tribe. No one says the individual. The hippie babbles on about individuality, but has no more conception of it than any other man. That is still true, not just for the hippie, but for all of us. He desires to get back to nature, back to the wilderness, back to the home of the furry animals that he's one of, away from the city where there is at least a trace, a bare beginning of civilization, to live at the species level, his time taken up with simple, non-intellectual activities. The most important activity of the commune, the one on which it is based, is ing. The hippie is enticed to the commune mainly by the prospect of all the free, the main commodity to be shared, to be had just for the asking, but blinded by greed, he fails to anticipate all the other men he has to share with, or the jealousies and possessiveness of the meows themselves. Men cannot cooperate to achieve a common end because each man's end is all the meow for himself. The commune, therefore, is doomed to fail. Now, I'm going to need y'all to go see about Neek at Night and all of the phenomenal work she did covering the Carbon Nation cults. Nature Boy and the Carbon Nation cult. Just go put some respect on that woman's name, the work that she put into covering that trial, the respect she showed the people who were a part of that community and came to speak with her and share their stories with her. Just check and see how that aligns with Valerie's estimation of men cannot cooperate to achieve a common end because each man's end is all the meow for himself. The commune, therefore, is doomed to failure. Each hippie will, in panic, grab the first simpleton who digs him and whisk her off to the suburbs as fast as he can, if they weren't in an actual cult, that is. The male cannot progress socially, but merely swings back and forth from isolation to ing. Conformity. Although he wants to be an individual, the male is scared of anything in himself that is the slightest bit different. Maybe I should just end at gangbanging. I feel like, no, you couldn't, okay. Conformity. Although he wants to be an individual, the male is scared of anything in himself that is the slightest bit different from other men. It causes him to suspect that he's not really a man, that he's passive and totally sexual, a highly upsetting suspicion. If other men are A and he's not, he must not be a man. Therefore, he must be a, the Brits call that. If other men are A and he's not, he must not be a man. He must be a. So he tries to affirm his manhood by being like all the other men. Differentness in other men, as well as in himself, threatens him. It means they're whom he must at all costs avoid. So he tries to make sure that all other men conform. The male dares to be different to the degree that he accepts his passivity and his desire to be female, his fagginess. The farthest out male is the drag queen, but he, although different from most men, is exactly like all other drag queens. Like the functionalist, he has an identity. He is a female. He tries to define all his troubles away, but still no individuality. Not completely convinced that he's a woman, highly insecure about being sufficiently female, he conforms compulsively to the man-made feminine stereotype, ending up as nothing but a bundle of stilted mannerisms. To be sure he's a man, the male must see to it that the female be clearly a woman, the opposite of a man. That is, the female must act like a... And Daddy's girl, all of whose female instincts were wrenched out of her when little, easily and obligingly adapts herself to the role. Authority and government. Oh, Valerie. Okay. Child. Okay. I keep trying to clear it away. Clearly, it don't need to be cleared because authority and government. Having no sense of right or wrong, no conscience, which can only stem from an ability to empathize with others, having no faith in his non-existent self, being necessarily competitive and by nature unable to cooperate, the male feels a need for external guidance and control. So he created authorities, priests, experts, bosses, leaders, etc., and government. Wanting the female, mama, to guide him, but unable to accept this fact, he is, after all, a man, wanting to play woman to usurp her function as guider and protector. He sees to it that all authorities are male, which is interesting because as a birth giver, they automatically assume the main caretaker of the child, the future, the protector of the future, is automatically assumed to necessarily be the woman because we bear them. We nurture them before they even... Okay, I'm not even going to get into the fact that the only time that it seems to matter about what's in our womb is when it's inside of our wombs so that it can be controlled as a means of controlling us. That's the only time that they seem to care about the babies that we carry. Because once they're born, they don't care about them. But at any rate, wanting the female, mama, to guide him, but unable to accept this fact, he is, after all, a man, wanting to play woman to usurp her function as guider and protector, he sees to it that all authorities are male. There's no reason why a society consisting of rational beings capable of empathizing with each other, complete and having no natural reason to compete, should have a government, laws, or leaders. Philosophy, religion, and morality based on sex. I already know this is where I'm stopping because I already know. The male's inability to relate to anybody or anything makes his life pointless and meaningless. The ultimate male insight is that life is absurd, so he invented philosophy and religion. Being empty, he looks outward, not only for guidance and control, but for salvation and for the meaning of life. Happiness being for him impossible on this earth, he invented heaven. For man, having no ability to empathize with others and being totally sexual, wrong is sexual license and engaging in deviant, unmanly sexual practices. That is, not defending against his passivity and total sexuality, which, if indulged, would destroy civilization, since civilization is based entirely on the male need to defend himself against these characteristics. For a woman, according to men, wrong is any behavior that would entice men into sexual license. That is, not placing male needs above her own and not being a faggot. Religion not only provides men with a goal, heaven, and helps keep women tied to men, but offers rituals through which he can try to expiate. So expel. You can try to expiate, yes, to get rid of. But offers rituals through which he can, and probably not just get rid of, but probably absolve to a certain extent. So at any rate, religion not only provides men with a goal, heaven, and helps keep women tied to men, but offers rituals through which he can try to expiate the guilt and shame he feels at not defending himself enough against his sexual impulses. In essence, that guilt and shame he feels at being a male. Most men, utterly cowardly, project their inherent weaknesses onto women, label them female weaknesses, and believe themselves to have female strengths. Most philosophers, not quite so cowardly, face the fact that male lacks exist in men, but still can't face the fact that they exist in men only. So they label the male condition the human condition, pose their nothingness problem, which horrifies them, as a philosophical dilemma, thereby giving stature to their animalism, grandiloquently label their nothingness their identity problem, and proceed to prattle on pompously about the crisis of the individual, the essence of being, existence preceding essence, existential modes of being, etc., etc. A woman not only takes her identity and individuality for granted, but knows instinctively that the wrong. I guess she continues to speak to nature and what she considers our nature to be. So, a woman not only takes her identity and individuality for granted, but knows instinctively that the only wrong is to hurt others and that the meaning of life is love. I mean, we might not act on it, but prejudice, racial, ethnic, religious, etc. The male needs scapegoats onto whom he can project his failings and inadequacies, upon whom he can vent his frustration at not being female. And the various discriminations have the practical advantage of substantially increasing the pool available to the men on top. Competition, prestige, status, formal education, ignorance, and social and economic classes. That's the about. Okay. This goes to page 47. I am on page 20. This will be the last section I read. Competition, prestige, status, formal education, ignorance, and social and economic classes. Having an obsessive desire to be admired by women, but no intrinsic worth, the male constructs a highly artificial society, enabling him to appropriate the appearance of worth through money, prestige, high social class, degrees, professional position and knowledge, and by pushing as many other men as possible down professionally, socially, economically, and educationally. The purpose of higher education is not to educate, but to exclude as many as possible from the I'm going to come back to this tomorrow. I'm going to come back because I'm going to have thoughts. I'm going to have lots of thoughts. But in order to remain this and not fall into complete this, considering the actual state of the community into which I was born, the one that I value so much, I'm trying to synthesize for myself I'm too tired for words. I'll be back. I am going to finish this. But my restful slumber requires I stop here, but I will continue. In the meantime, like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Valerie spoken, Valerie spoken, 1968. 7, 67, 69.